Go, 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 go.
3, 2, 1, 4 tires.
Still there, inside.
What a jump! What a jump!
The track is wet. It's good.
Still there, clear.
3, 2, 1. Green flag, green flag.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Forward Field Podcast. I am your host, Dominic Capilupo, joined by Steve Ray, Wesley Riddle, and Sam Dooley. We're here for a Team Penske 2026 season preview episode. I know Sam's excited for this one, talking about Penske and the Wood Brothers. Can't forget about the Wood Brothers. And so, without further ado, let's just jump into things right here. Team Penske had a solid season last year. Their four drivers, Austin Cindric, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, and then Josh Berry for the Wood Brothers. Team Penske had 108 races last season, 6 wins, 24 top 5s, 37 top 10s, an average finish of 16.9, an average start of 13.6. They had 4 poles, and they led 1,754 laps led. This was the second season in a row that all 4 of the drivers from Penske and Wood Brothers made the playoffs. So let's start with the highest finishing driver in points last season for Penske, and that is Ryan Blaney.
I'm going to take over for Ryan Blaney here. He had, still an incredible season. I feel like you look overall just at the raw speed he had, and I think even the stats backed it. He was kind of overall the fastest driver throughout the whole season. But a lot of the races, we weren't able to see the full potential of what he could do because he had quite a few DNFs. For him, even though he got 4 wins, right, he was able to win the season finale race at Phoenix with the circumstances that went down, but was able to win at Nashville, Daytona, and New Hampshire. Daytona being the fall race, and then New Hampshire and Nashville being the only 2 single races there. But the DNFs, you look at them, they were kind of what put kind of the nail in the coffin for him, because in those races, each one he had race winning speed, but they were taken away. None of them even due to his own fault. Had a win sneak away at Darlington. But it was still overall a great season. 15 top 5s, besting 2024. 19 top 10s, besting 2024. 24 had 12 top 5s, 18 top 10s. So average finish got better. Average start was a little bit worse. It's always been a kind of his Achilles heel. I think the qualifying for him, there are certain times he'll show up and have great qualifying pace, but then on most weeks you see him qualify third from the 3 Penske drivers, excluding Josh Berry. Josh Berry, though, usually qualifies up front and ahead of Blaney. So that's something that they're going to have to work on for 2026. But, still, like, just an incredible season. Even though he wasn't able to make it to the Final 4, I feel like, he's going to be a championship threat no matter what the year is. Now, if the format does change, the one thing they're going to have to nail down is just making sure they're not having those DNFs, because that's always kind of been the issue for him. Now, granted, a lot of them are just circumstantial, but the mechanical problems, were more frequent, I think, this year for him than any other. So if they're able to hone in on that, I feel like they're going to have a really good 2026 season. Just depends on what the playoff format's going to be. But yeah, I mean, still, like, leading the Ford camp, he's lights out. I mean, for where I feel like Ford standards are, he's just a step ahead of everybody. And I feel like that puts him as easily one of the best drivers. I feel like top 3, top 4, without question in the Cup Series.
Yeah, and the big bugaboo for Blaney is those DNFs. The last 2 seasons, we've seen him DNF 14 times, 8 times last year and 6 times in 2024. And if you get a full season format or a 10 race chase, you're not going to get away with all those DNFs, especially with how fast that 12 team is. Yeah, they were up in the points still in 2025, but you're not going to be able to get 8 DNFs every season and be, in the top 3 in points.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, if you look at it, like, just in those DNFs, right? I feel like there were races, especially at Homestead, the pace that he had at Phoenix and even Las Vegas. those races are ones where he lost playoff points, and I feel like those playoff points, obviously, if we keep a similar elimination style, right, losing those are what's going to hurt you in making it to the championship four. You could look at that Martinsville race last year where he finished second to William Byron, but the win would have made him advance, but right, more points would have put him in better position. So that's something again they're just going to have to improve on. But again, a lot of it's just circumstantial and being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that's kind of what bit Ryan Blaney throughout the 25 season.
Yeah, so the thing I have here, the over under for Ryan Blaney isn't wins, it's DNFs. So over under 4.5 DNFs for Ryan Blaney in 2026.
I think you'd have to take the over on that. A couple of his DNFs that he had in 2025 were engine failures. So you have to account for some form of mechanical problems a couple times. It always seems like with restrictor plate racing that, or super speedway racing nowadays, Brian Blaney, it's either a win or DNF when it comes to Talladega and Daytona and Atlanta. You can throw that in there too. So I think somewhere between mechanical failures and super speedway racing, and then one or two times you have to account for tire going down, things like that. So 4.5 DNFs, I would put that line really at most drivers through the field, not just Ryan Blaney in general. So I think at 4.5 for that, I would probably take the over.
Yeah, I'd probably go over as well. I think it'll be right around that number. I don't think it'll be any more than like 5 or 6 that he has. Just because, like Steve was saying, you got to factor in restrictor plate racing and drafting tracks, and there's 6 of those now. So if you even reckon like 2 of those, right, of your 6 opportunities, you DNF in 2 of those. Like that's 2 right there. And then, you know, you can have parts fail here and there. It happens throughout the course of the season. So I'd probably put him right at about the number, but I'm going to take the over. Probably about 5 is what I'm guessing. I think they'll clean up a lot of the mistakes that they had this year, a lot of the mechanical stuff. I don't think it'll be near as high as it was, but I think it'll probably be around 4 or 5.
I'm actually going to go with the under. I feel like, the mechanical issues, that's something that they can alleviate, through an off season. So if they're able to take those away, super speedway is obviously the biggest threat, but you look at 2022, he only had 3 DNFs. 2023 he only had 2. So early in the next gen era, when mechanical parts were falling off a lot of cars, he didn't have that many issues. So I feel like as long as, and he's a driver, right? He doesn't cause a lot of incidents. I don't think he probably didn't cause one wreck in the last 2 or 3 years. Like he just, I think he wrecked at Las Vegas, but he keeps it super clean. So, unless he's getting swept up in somebody else's mistake, he's a clean driver. He's not going to make mistakes, and he's going to be up front. So, just keep it clean at super speedways. I'll take the under.
Yeah, I think I'll also go the under. Before the last 2 seasons, DNFs were never really a big issue for Ryan Blaney. It's just kind of the last 2 years that's kind of caught up to him, and that team is so good. I think he's going to have more wins this season than DNFs, if I'm being honest. So, I mean, I say he gets at least 5 wins, and I don't think he hits that 5 DNF mark.
All right. Well, moving into our second best Penske driver of the year. Somehow I drew the short end of the stick. This is painful. I got Joey Logano. But Joey Logano ended up 7th in the points standings at the end of 2025. And really, when you look at the statistics outside of 3 less wins than 2024, his stats are actually equal, if not better, than 2024, where he went out and won the championship. So just something about even year Logano, they pull this rabbit out of a hat and somehow work their way through to a championship. Now, 3 of those wins in 2024 were all in the playoffs. It came all at the right time. But as far as 2025 goes, he just had the single win at Texas earlier in the year. But on pars, same stats as 2024, 7 top 5s, 13 top 10s. He actually improved almost 2 positions on his average finish, was about a spot behind in the average start, 1 less pole, But most importantly for the 22 team, they had 3 less DNFs and led about just over 150 laps more than the year before. So statistically, most of the categories were equal, if not better, in 2025. Unfortunately, I feel like the common theme for Logano was they just seemed to be a back half of the top 10 car the majority of the races. And a lot of times, I mean, there were some stretches, especially through the summer months, where you look anywhere from Michigan through, really Watkins Glen. I mean, a couple ninth place finishes in there, but really everything was just kind of across the board, everything from 11th, 22nd, 36th. So there just really was no consistency. They weren't getting, racking off top 5s, top 10s, certainly just the single win, like we alluded to. Some good runs in the playoffs of, 3 top 5s in a row at St. Louis, Bristol, and New Hampshire, and it got them into the round of 8. There were certainly opportunities, I feel like, for them to try to sneak their way into the championship 4 round. Ultimately, their championship efforts ended early. He's just a guy that you can never really count out. It seems like even though what I feel like most Logano fans would consider to be a down year for them, it just really, you can never really count them out of these things. They're just the cat that has 9 lives, and always seems to be a guy that when push comes to shove and it doesn't really seem to matter at what style of track they're at, whether, road courses are kind of their Achilles heel, but super speedway racing, short tracks, intermediate tracks, they're always going to be there. Certainly their fuel mileage game is unlike any other. We saw that a couple of years ago at Nashville. So, I wouldn't consider 25 a fail by any means for Logano outside of not winning the championship, but certainly looks to improve on, some of those statistics need to be improved on for 26. But like we've seen, it seems like if you're going to bet on Logano championship coming into 2026 with it being an even year, hard to bet against that. So that is where we're at on Logano.
Yeah, and obviously I've made it pretty well known I'm a Logano fan, and it felt like this year the best I was looking at was a top 5 most of the time. Like it kind of felt like I had the Chase Elliott fanitis, but I didn't have the consistency. Like it was like, oh, the best week in and week out, the best I can really shoot for is kind of top 5 and hope that you can kind of luck your way into one. And then on a bad week, it was like, wow, we're mired back in 30th. We're never going to get up there. We'll finish 25th. Right. So it was like, that's the best way I can describe it is like, it was like being a Chase Elliott fan, except we didn't have like the top 20 streak. It was just like, if it was off, it was really bad. And if it was really good, it was, hey, let's get a top 5.
Yeah, I'd say that would be their Achilles heel from the 25 season, is that you would just watch some of these races and it seemed like in the first stage he was, about to be lapped. And there were just some weekends where they completely missed the ball and were just slow. And that's the little things that need to be cleaned up, is that if you don't always have to go out. I mean, obviously the goal, right, is to go out and win, but minimize your damages. That really hurt them, is that, some of those finishes, like they weren't getting very many stage wins or a lot of stage points. And I feel like that is what ultimately hurt them in the playoffs. Granted, he got to the round of 8, but ultimately that's a big reason of they just had so much of a hurdle once they got to Martinsville. It's like you had to win. And those are the little things that I would focus on cleaning up for this year.
One interesting thing just to draw that I was looking at was Joey hasn't actually led the most laps in a race that's not a drafting track. And I guess the only race he's led more laps than any other driver that's not on a non-drafting track since 2023. So in the last 3 years was New Hampshire, and that was the most recent New Hampshire race. So he's obviously not had the race winning pace. Now, again, and you both mentioned that he's able to minimize his losses by just being there at the end and getting the job done by bringing some solid results home when it counts. But he's got to be able to find the race winning pace, and I feel like he could look on a teammate like Ryan Blaney to draw from it. But you kind of expect it to already be there, right? Just with how Logano's already been kind of at the peak in multiple series, and there's just something missing. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe he'll be able to turn it around this season. It's just a matter of, how can he look and perform and try to get back on top of the Ford camp. Because that's where he was for a long majority part of his career, and he's just still a little bit short of it right now.
The last 3 seasons for Logano, he gets, I mean, just to put it bluntly, he gets his ass kicked by his teammate Ryan Blaney the last 3 years. And yes, Logano got the championship in 2024, but honestly, Ryan Blaney probably should have won that championship too. If it's anyone else behind Logano there in those closing laps, they probably move Logano out of the way. But you can't be too excited after the last 3 years if you're Joey Logano. But because he's Joey Logano, he's able to will that car to a better finish than where that car runs all day, like you guys have said. So Logano, the driver, I'm not worried about. It's that 22 team, and like we said about Chase Elliott, like, yeah, Paul Wolf has a good history, but I mean, how long are they gonna accept 13 top tens a season? Not even sniffing 10 top fives a season. So yeah, you just gotta think and lead. Logano's a driver who's almost led 1,500 laps in a season. He hasn't even done that the last 3 seasons combined. So, I mean, how much mediocrity can you stand before you make a big change? Because they've changed the crew chief on the 12, and it's worked out really well. So why not try that out with the 22? Because Paul Wolf's got the name recognition, and maybe it's time for him to become like a competition director, but just doesn't seem like in that the next gen era, Paul Wolf is really kind of taking a dip, kind of like Ronnie Childers did with Kevin Harvick. Now, Logano, I have his line set at 1.5 wins this season, over under.
I'll probably take the under on it and just probably a 1 win. Again, nothing. They didn't really go through 25 that said, yes, this is going to be a team that's going to compete weekly. And just, the stats that we've mentioned, there's really nothing over the past 3 years that have like jumped out. Granted, yes, he got 4 wins in 24, but you can look at a lot of those instances. His fuel should not have lasted at Nashville, and we can go through some other instances, right? So there's nothing like jumps out, and like you alluded to, Dom, like he's not the lead car at Penske. That's Blaney is the lead car at Penske. So once you start, and we've kind of talked about this during the Hendrick and the Gibbs episodes, there's only so many races in a year. And if all these guys are going to start hitting overs and overs and overs, we're going to run out of races really quick. I just don't see Logano when you're going up against the Hendricks, the Gibbs, your own Penske teammate with Ryan Blaney. You run out of races pretty quick. And so I'll take the under.
Shocker, I'm going to take the over. It's a homer pick, but at the same time, I'm looking at 6 drafting tracks, and he is a premier drafting track guy. So the odds, especially like in Atlanta, he's really good. So I'd say he probably grabs one of those, and then I think he may be able to grab at least another one somewhere else. Um, I'm thinking he's probably gonna have 2 next year, maybe 3. Um, but like it's not a real confident over because I mean this year was just kind of run of the mill. Like you can call it an odd year, but at some point, at some point the superstition just kind of stops, and it just is a bad year and kind of just a bad year, a run of the mill year. So I mean, like Dom was saying, the driver I don't have any real questions about. But it's kind of the team and kind of everything together. It kind of felt like they lacked speed this year. But I think I'm looking at probably a drafting win and maybe something like a Pocono or something like it's gonna be some random track that he just like finds himself in the front at, and then I think he probably gets two.
2021, 2023, and 2025, those were all one-win seasons for Logano. And then the years in between, obviously, he won the championship. So he's a guy that, and Sam, you just mentioned it, like he can definitely go off and knock down a couple wins on some super speedways. I feel like Atlanta's kind of, he's kind of the guy at Atlanta. Um, he and Cindric kind of run a little bit better, honestly, than Blaney. But I just don't know. I feel like it's going to be a coin flip. I feel like he could be a little more competitive this year, but I'll take the under just from, again, three out of the last 5 years, just one win seasons. Um, that's kind of a little worrisome. And then obviously Sam, Steve, you both mentioned you look at Hendrick, you look at Gibbs, and then you look at your own teammate. I think Steve, you said that, but it's can he outduel them? It's really hard aside from the super speedways to look at Logano and say he can outrun Blaney at any racetrack right now. So I feel like for that reason I have to take the under.
Definitely gonna go the under. Just Logano's made the championship four every even year since the championship four was established in 2014. But if we get rid of this championship race, which hopefully we do, still not announced as we're recording this episode, the even year Logano thing might come to an end then. Because if we go to a 10 race chase or even a 4 race final round, I mean, when was the last time Joey Logano outscored the entire field in a 4 or 5 race stretch, let alone 10? So, I mean, you're probably going back to his championship year in 2018 and maybe even back to 2015 when he was on that tear that season. So, I'm going to go the under. If he gets there, could be a fuel mileage win, could be super speedway wins, or just kind of finds himself in that right spot like he did at Texas in 25. Now that takes us to the final Penske car, Austin Cindric. He finished 14th in the championship standings this season. He had one win at the spring Talladega race. He had two top fives, five top tens, an average finish of 20.86, an average start of 13.3. He had no poles. He had 4 DNFs, and he led 325 laps. Now, 127 of those laps came at the super speedway tracks. So really, he led under 200 laps on non-super speedway tracks this season. Just a total regression year for Austin Cindric. He finished 11th in the standings in 2024. He had double the top fives in 24, had two more top tens. His average finish was one spot better. His only thing he improved on was his average start and laps led. And this is bad. He finished 7.5 spots averaged worse from where he, started to where he finished. And that is really bad. And there's just what Austin Cindric did last year. I mean, there's no more Cindric name keeping him in that ride. So he's another one like Todd Gibbs and Bowman. Maybe not Todd Gibbs as much, but like Bowman, where it's put up or shut up this year, because if he puts up that stat line again, there's just no way you could even harness the fact that he's going to be driving the legendary number 2 car for Roger Penske, because that is brutal. Not even having a top 20 average finish is really bad at Penske.
Especially when your two teammates, I mean, Ryan Blaney is a top 5 driver every week, and Logano, isn't that far behind him. And then you have Cindric, which is way out in left field there. I mean, like you said, for a Penske car to be having an average finish of almost 21st we're going back to like Sam Hornish Penske days, right? Of how bad it is. Or David Stremme Penske days, right? It's getting to that level of bad. And you're right. If he does not perform this year, then like his dad doesn't work at Penske anymore, so there is no "Hey Dad, can you save my job" type thing here. Um, you have to think that if he doesn't perform this year, there's really nothing that's saving him anymore. You can't live off of the legacy of, oh, I won a Daytona 500. You can't live off of that legacy alone forever. And at some point, it's going to come back to bite you, and it's going to cost you your ride.
Yeah, with Cindric, I mean, I'm looking at the sheet right now, and we're about to get into Josh Berry after this, but Josh Berry's almost got better stats than him in the Wood Brothers car. He's got, I mean, he had more top fives and top tens than him. His average finish, um, was not that far off. And I mean, you can, if you, our note on here is if you take away the three last places, hate to, you know, spoiler alert for our Barry part, but you take away the three last places that Barry had in the round of 16, and he would have had an average finish of 19, which is better than Cindric in the actual Penske car. So, like, you look at that, there's no more, dad's not there anymore. Like, I mean, you've got to be competing and you've got to be like it can't just be a one-off win, especially if we get a new points format where the win's not locking you in, right? You've got to be on your game this year if you're Austin Cindric, or there's too much good talent coming up. Like, we've got too many like really good talent drivers that are sitting around in Xfinity and sitting around in trucks for someone like Roger Penske to not be able to go poach one of them. Even if they're not in the Ford camp, go grab someone out of Chevy like Rajah Caruth, or grab someone out of Toyota like Heim, who is for some reason not in the Cup ride, right? So I mean, if you're Austin Cindric, you are on the hottest seat of anybody that's in a top ride right now, because you cannot do this again. This is an F minus minus on the report card right here. Even though you have the one win or whatever, like you made the playoffs, whoop de doo. You were outperformed by the like basically quote unquote fourth Penske car that's not really a Penske car. They're a Penske car when they win, but then they're a Wood Brothers car when they lose, and it's a whole thing, right? You got outperformed by that car. Like, shoot, Josh Berry could take his ride and probably perform better in the two car. So you Austin Cindric has to have the hottest seat probably in Cup this year. And he's got to go out there and I think he's got to rip off a couple of wins, like not just one. You got to rip off a couple. You got to be inside the top 10 in points, and you need to have like at least double digit top tens. Like, that's at least. Probably need like 15, especially if you're going to be in top 10 in points. And a lot more top fives. It just has to look better overall because it has not looked good. So, um, Austin Cindric will definitely be on the hot seat this year, and I don't see him back in 27 if something like this or something that's even close to this happens again next year.
Just to say, I was curious. I looked up David Stremme's history just at, Penske. It was only four positions worse of an average finish than what Cindric was able to pull off this year. And I remind you, a lot of people, I'm not saying Austin Cindric is worse than David Stremme, but Stremme also didn't have the opportunity and the upbringing that Austin Cindric has had, because Austin has been with Penske pretty much his entire life, right? So, and then you look at David Stremme. I mean, he came into the Cup Series after racing for Braun and Fitz Bradshaw Racing, like and those were like not even consistent rides. Like, and he was competing against drivers that were full time in Cup at the time. Like, so you look at those rookie class drivers, right? And then obviously he stepped into a ride that was kind of on the back end with Sterling Marlin. Like, he had high expectations to fill, and his numbers really. Uh, and I say that with Chip Ganassi, but then he took over for Penske in the 12, and that car was like more of a test car than anything. So, like, I'm just saying that right there should tell you that Cindric, another similar situation to Bowman, either go out and perform, which he did, early in the season. There were some races. Cindric had some good speed. He looked really good at Las Vegas, like he could have won that race in the spring. But where did it go? Why can't he not finish these races? He's always up front at the start and then fades to irrelevancy. So it's, again, pick up or shut up. If he doesn't get it done in the first 10 weeks, he's out the door. There's no way they're going to hold on to him. And maybe they've already talked about it. Kind of a similar situation with Matt DiBenedetto, right? Where they were going to have him possibly step away. And I can't remember how that was going to work out, but it just does not look good for Austin Cindric. And he better show up on a non-super speedway and get the job done. If not, he's done.
One top five and three top tens on non-super speedway tracks for Austin Cindric in 2025. That is unfathomable how bad that is. And in the playoffs, since he did make the playoffs with his Talladega win, he finished 30th or worse in half of the playoff races. I mean, that just speaks, for itself. So, will Austin Cindric win a non-super speedway race in 2026, and will he be at Penske in 2027?
No and no.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it quick because I already did my whole spiel. No and no. I don't think he has it. If he has it in him, then he'll like if he wins, like I said, 3 or 4 races, he'll be back in 27. But if he doesn't win, especially like a non-super speedway race, if he doesn't show at least glimpses of it, it's not even really a question. Like you could say if he's like somewhat decent, okay, but like if he's as bad as he was this year, then he's gone.
I'm going to say no and no. I think if they're able to find the funding, I bet Josh Berry would move in that too. And I think he would show a lot of people, what he's capable of. Be curious to see who would go to the 21, but I just don't. I don't see Cindric aside from maybe Vegas. Aside from Vegas and maybe Martinsville, I think those are the only two tracks he could win. And with the competition that we have and the drivers that can outperform him every single week, it's not going to happen.
I'm going no and no, and I'm going to say for the first time here, watch out for Carson Quaffle as a possible replacement for Austin Cindric in 2027.
There's a lot of talent out there. There really is. There's a lot of hungry drivers that could take that ride and turn it into something better than that. But that'll move on to me with Josh Berry. I kind of already spoiled a lot of the juicy stuff when I was talking about Austin Cindric, so it probably won't be too much of a conversation. But Josh Berry did start in all 36 races. He had one win at Las Vegas, 3 top 5s, 8 top 10s, which is better than his 2 and 4, respectively, from 2024. His average finish was 21.67, which actually was an improvement from 2024, which was 22.72. His average start was 15.8, which was a big improvement from 2024, which was 20.3. He had no poles in either year. He had 9 DNFs this year, which seemed to be kind of the theme of that team, especially, of course, in the first round of the playoffs. Um, he had 10 in 2024, so he was technically better there. And he led 207 laps compared to 96 the year before. And like I said earlier, the tidbit is that Barry's average finish would be 19.0 if you took away his 3 last place finishes in the round of 16. That was just kind of his year was looking good. I want to say, for the Wood Brothers car, it was looking good. Um, it got off to the hot start. We kind of had high expectations. And like I was saying, when they win, it's a Penske car. When they lose, it's a Wood Brothers car, even though it's technically always a little bit of both. It's obviously not Penske's A team, and it's obvious they're made in the same shop as Penske, so it's kind of basically that's why they're in this video together with Penske. But like they started out with that Las Vegas win, and they racked up a couple of top 10 finishes, and we're like, oh wow, 21 is going to be the truth. And then kind of they got that summer slump, and then but it's like they're still in the playoffs, so let's give them a chance. And then they just sleepwalk into the playoffs. Three straight, 3 straight last. They were all 3 DNFs, if I remember correctly. Um, and it was just bad. Like it just wasn't really. It didn't look good, especially considering what we had saw at the beginning of the season, kind of where we had set our expectations. Um, so it was just kind of like it was they regressed back to the mean, I think. I think that they kind of overachieved to start the season, and then they regressed so far back that it kind of averaged out to be an average Wood Brothers season. But I think Josh Berry has a lot more talent than that, and I think that looking forward, they just need to execute really, because obviously we saw it at the start of the playoffs. What should have been your three best cars all blew up, or something happened, and some could be controlled, some could be controlled. Um, but having nine DNFs, it's just I don't care who you are. You have nine DNFs, it's going to be really hard, especially in a different point system. It's going to be really hard to try and do anything worthwhile championship wise if you're the 21 with nine DNFs. So just the team kind of executing better. Uh, and I still think Josh Berry has great talent. He showed it at Las Vegas when he went out there and won on just raw pace. Um, but yeah, so I think just going forward, just kind of executing all around as a unit, I think would help the 21. And I don't think there's really lofty expectations for him. There's still just that other team that's there. So I think just execute, go out there and run your races, and I think they'll continue to have success with Josh Berry in the car.
I think with Josh Berry, the big thing here for him and the Wood Brothers in 2026, let's see you get double digit top tens. I think you start there and then you get that average finish up to, I'd say, you try to get there around the 17th to 18th because you saw, yeah, 19th was the average finish taking out those three races in the first round. So it's definitely attainable. 21.67 is just probably not a true, depiction of where they ran all season. But that win at Vegas kind of set higher expectations from maybe the entire industry for them, which kind of just weren't met and shouldn't be judged. It's kind of like that. So I think trying to get back into victory lane again and getting double digit top tens is would be a big step for Josh Berry and the 21 team. Now, with that, I'll ask you guys this final question. Will Josh Berry win in 2026?
I'm gonna say yes. I think he will. I think there's a lot of tracks that play into his wheelhouse. Vegas, of course, is the big one. Dom and I, we saw his second career Xfinity win at Vegas, and obviously he won there in the spring last year. He's really good at New Hampshire. He's really good at short tracks like Iowa. I think he could show up at Bristol if he has the right car. So I think he can. Wood, the Wood brothers can definitely hit it on a good week. And when they do, he's going to be up front. I mean, they almost did at Texas, and then I think he hit that bump and it took him out of the race. So, the mile and a halves and the short tracks are his wheelhouse, and I think he can get a win. So I'll take the over. I'll take at least one win.
I'm going to agree. I'm going to say one win as well. Like Wes alluded to, he was running up front and was leading part of the Texas race, and then also was having a good run at Kansas. I saw that you got like a 12th place run at the Coke 600 at Charlotte too. So if they can keep up that speed, there's a lot of mile and a halfs out there, and obviously with Josh's background in short track racing, Bristol, Martinsville, New Hampshire, Richmond, those are all going to be good tracks for him. Plus, then you throw in the super speedways. So really outside of the road courses, and then maybe some of the bigger, like your Michigan and things like that, Pocono. So I think one, and certainly the win that he had at Las Vegas was not a fluke by any means. So I think one win, and agreeing with Dom, double digit top tens would be kind of a fair goal for the 21 team.
Yeah, I think if the team can put four tires under him that go, Josh Berry's the guy that's going to do it. He's not going to make mistakes. Like you seldom ever see him make mistakes. He can take a good car, turn it into a great car. Because obviously he took a bad car and turned it into an all right car a bunch of times this season. That's why they had an above their normal level average finish this year with the Wood brothers. So I think that he could definitely go out like exactly what Wes said, mile and a half and short tracks. Look out for him, because if they can put a car underneath him that is a top 5 car, I think that he could turn a top 5 car into a winning car at a mile and a half or a short track.
So I am also going to say he'll win at least one race. Look out at New Hampshire, Phoenix, those types of racetracks as well. The Wood brothers have not won at least one race in 3 consecutive seasons since they won every season from 1963 till 1983. This would be the first time since 83 where they've completed a streak of at least 3 seasons consecutively of winning at least one race in the Cup Series. So I think we see a little bit of history this year. Get 3 seasons in a row with the Wood brothers win in the Cup Series.
The sport's just better when the Wood brothers are better too. Just that history that's there. Because, like, I know Legacy's petty, but it doesn't have the name anymore. So, like, it really doesn't have that same meaning, even though you've got the number and all of that. But just the history and legacy that goes along with the Wood brothers, it's just great to see whenever they're up there and they're competing. Like when Ryan Blaney was in the car, it was great. And, seeing Trevor Bayne win the Daytona 500, like those iconic memories that you think of. It's just great when the Wood brothers are good. So I really am hoping that they could put a car under Josh Berry because, like I said, he's a wheel man. He can get it done.
All right. So that wraps up a Team Penske and Wood Brothers Racing season preview. Now, make sure if you've made it this far, make sure you're following the Four and Field podcast on all social media platforms, just at Four and Field Podcast. We just got over 900 followers on TikTok. The goal is to get to 1,000 by the Daytona 500 on there, so make sure you're going on there. If you're enjoying what you're listening to, we've got plenty more previews coming up. I posted the schedule on our Twitter of all the upload dates coming up all the way to the Daytona 500. Our next episode is going to be a 2311 racing preview, which will come out on Thursday. So make sure you're tuned in for that. If you're listening on Spotify, leave us 5 stars on there. Leave a comment on there. We're new to Apple Podcasts, so make sure you're listening on there. Welcome everyone that listens on Apple. And make sure you're watching on YouTube, giving us a like, subscribing on there, and leave us a comment on what you think, Penske and the Wood brothers are going to do this year. So for Sam, Wes, Steve, I'm Dom. We'll see you on Thursday talking 2311.